Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our next Women and Wealth series. We are so excited to have you join us tonight. I hope that you've all got your drink of choice, tea, coffee, juice, wine, whatever it is, and you're ready to sit back and relax and dive in to your relationship with money with Anne Wilson, the Wealth Chef. We are very, very excited to have you online with us. Welcome, Anne.
It is such a joy to be here to talk about money, wealth, all the sexy, juicy stuff with a bunch of women. I mean, what better way to spend the evening? So I can't wait to dive in.
Great. I am joined with Megan and Pamela tonight, who are going to lead us through various aspects of tonight. But to our attendees, thank you for joining us. As always, we've got a chat box and a Q&A box. Please type in there. Let us know where you're joining us from. We've had over 400 people subscribe for this webinar, so we are excited to learn which corner of the world you're coming to. And also, that's where you're going to type your comments and your questions that you want Anne to answer throughout the webinar. We'll be monitoring that, and we will get her to answer all your questions. The juicier, the better. Anne has said no holds barred. So
absolutely. Let's strip away and talk real about money for once.
Exactly. So Megs, what do you have for our viewers tonight?
Hi, everybody. So those that are joining us for the first time or don't know who we are, I am Megan. I am Scott. Everyone should, from Wealth Migrate, the CEO Scott. I've been his longest standing PA of 4 years. And together with Lee and Pamela, we've decided to have a Women and Wealth webinar because obviously during COVID, a lot of late women are stay-at-home moms and they're having it really, really tough. So we thought we might have a little bit of motivation with some beautiful powerhouse women so we can motivate you to end the year on a big bang. Wealth Migrate is an online real estate platform and we help the 99% invest like the top 1%. Did I miss anything, Pamela? Anything you want to add?
Nothing. You covered it all tonight. Hey, Megs. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Pamela, and I happen to report to Megs. I am what you call Megs' PA and Scott's, or whatever the company needs. That's where I flow towards. I see we have people from Zambia tonight, people from Saudi Arabia. So you're not alone, Lee. You're not alone tonight. That's about it from me. Let's hear what Anne has to say.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies. Have a phenomenal webinar, Anne. We're going to hand over the reins to you and say, dive in and teach us your magic.
Fantastic. Well, it is such a joy to be here. And yeah, let me know you're here because it's always great to have connection and collaboration, because this is together having real money conversations, real talk, and get those questions in. I'm going to share a bit of content, share some of my thoughts around what does it mean to create real sustainable financial well-being? What does it mean? Some of the extra challenges for us as women, and open lines for questions. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Anne Wilson, and my brand and the business that is my absolute passion is called The Wealth Chef, which is about helping extraordinary women understand, get empowered around their money stuff. The reality is we have come so far. You know, we've had extraordinary women ahead of us who've had such courage at different forefronts of giving us voice, giving us opportunity, giving us enablement to start feeling safe. And we can actually start bringing more ourselves out to the world. We have had huge liberation in terms of our sexuality in so many different fronts. But we still lag behind devastatingly on financial empowerment and really having the economic resources to bring our full aspects to the world. And you know, we are in Women's Month in South Africa, and I think that's part of the sort of women's series in this month. And I was just thinking about, you know, connecting tonight with all of you. And so often in the Women's Month things, you know, quite frankly, I find it quite patronizing. We'll, you know, have a spa voucher, go and get your nails done. Let's do this. And I go, hang on, let's have some real conversations in Women's Month. Let's sort out violence against women and gender inequality in the financial well-being front. Hell, then we're starting to have real conversations. Then we're really starting to talk about what does it mean for us women and what are the resources we need to fully step into the world for ourselves, for our daughters and kids, to actually, when we look at the world out there, we can see what has what has been the implication from the energy, the gifts, the power of the feminine not being fully empowered. And the reality is, what I believe at my core is that if we're not financially empowered, if you are not financially empowered, you will be overpowered. And power starts first with being safe. And one of the key aspects around money is to enable you to feel safe, to have choices, to not be constantly living in anxiety. The next layer is to have resources to start expressing power, to be able to say yes and no, to be able to move towards the things that serve, to be able to move away from the things that disable you. And this is when we can then be fully expressed. And for me, empowerment and living our freest lives and freedom and wealth is when we can live life fully on our terms, no matter the price. And when we have the courage and the resources to do that. So it is such a joy to be here tonight. I went straight in, but this is what I'm really passionate about. And so through the WealthE business, I teach amazing people how to master their money stuff. How do we shift from being slaves and afraid around this money stuff to get this extraordinary resource, which that's all it is, in flowing into our life. So I'm going to be covering the 5 core pillars that you need to create this wealthy ecosystem to be fully empowered and have money and assets serving and supporting you. And this is so important that we really understand that wealth is an ecosystem. Wealth and financial well-being is not a one-off event. It's not trying to earn more and get more money in. You sure as hell don't marry it. You sure as hell it's not one investment that's suddenly going to make you rich. It's understanding there's behavioral aspects, there's different assets we need to be investing in, there's protection. So what is the system that we need that then almost guarantees your ability to thrive financially? Because here's the devastating bad news, is that the real tragedy is, despite having come so far, despite hopes and dreams and goals and wishes of what we want to create and do in our lives, when it comes to women, 70% of women, women as a whole, have 75% less invested. That's whether it's in their retirement investments, just discretionary investments, in any kind of asset form, whether it's property, stocks and shares, any investments. Women have 75% less invested than men as a cluster. What? How crazy is that? In relationships, in heterosexual relationships, women have 82% less retirement savings than their male partner. Again, what? No wonder there's this discrepancy of aspects of being able to be fully inside a relation when we have massive inequality around where we even sit with the power dynamic around financial asset ownership. And 93% of women, in a research study that I recently reviewed, reported feeling consistently anxious around money. That both, and mostly their future financial well-being, it was just a deep anxiety and this worry, this almost unspoken fear that they would end up destitute, do something wrong, would end up sleeping under a bridge on a piece of cardboard. And, rightly so, because here's the devastating statistic. 2 out of 3 women in the developed world, I'm not talking about, developing world, but developed world and developing, 2 out of 3 will have to rely on the charity of a stranger, their kids, their family, heaven forbid, government, just to survive at some point in their life financially. That is no way of living. That is not life. That is not freedom. That is not empowerment. And that is why I do what I do. And I'm so proud of each of you choosing to educate ourselves, to choosing to go, hang on, as you've just said, Nima, it's a hectic inequality. And we need to shift this and we need to make a change. And just a final stat on this to really understand why there's this extraordinary urgency here. A UN study into asset ownership and wealth distribution around the world saw that women work 65% of your working labor hours in the whole world, of which a substantial part of those are unpaid labor. Domestic, home work side, 65% of your labor done in the world is done by women. 55% of food and food security is grown and done and produced at the labor of women. Women control only around 40% of the wage bill. But one of the most extraordinary and mind-blowing statistics is around the world, women control less than 1% of the assets. So my darlings, let's step up, because assets create our freedom. Assets give choice. Assets create wealth. And I'm going to keep going on about that when we really shift. It's not money that we need to be empowered. We need assets. If we keep believing we need more money, we will stay in a devastating cycle of this disempowered poverty. So time for us to absolutely step up. And being here, it means you're not going to be one of those stats, but also women have been shown, it's been shown over and over and over, when you also empower a woman, when she learns a skill, she will spread that at a scale of 10 times more than a man will in terms of the community. Now, this is not dissing men. It's also understanding why the ripple impact of microfinance is so powerful. When you educate a girl child, the economic impact is about 10 times more than educating a boy child. When you invest in a micro enterprise for a woman, the impact on the community because of this ripple impact, because women tend to be far more collaborative and community oriented. It just is. So when we think of that empowerment, when we truly go, oh, I see that my greatest gift that I can give to the world as a woman, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter, is to take seriously my financial empowerment, because then the ripple impact goes out. I put on my own oxygen mask first as the greatest gift that I can bring to the world. Because if you do not have financial resources, all of those hopes, dreams that you want are just wishful thinking. So let's dive into these 5 pillars. What are they? And the first most important, well, they all work together, but the first pillar of your financial resilience and well-being is leadership and management. And you're like, hang on, Anne, I thought we were talking about money. I really am. Because we've got to get first clear that who are we? Who are you? And what is it that you want from this one crazy, audacious, extraordinary life that you have? This is leadership. Do you have a vision for your life? Do you know what it is that you want your life expression to be? Because when we understand money is in service of life, but most people live in service of money, endlessly working for money, endlessly in fear and worried about it. We have to shift that and go, you first. What is your one crazy life? And for us women to really claim, go, what are my dreams and my goals? As opposed to what was I told I should do by society, my parents, what did I think was the right thing to do? What do I want? What the bleep do I want? Because we've got to get clear on this, because until we know what we want, we can't direct our money, our resources, our finances, our energy to creating that. And we need a real reclaiming around, this is what wealthy life is for me, not what the magazines have told me as a woman I should deem wealthy, or whatever it is. So leadership means, what is that vision? Because only with that can we strip away the things that don't serve. We can look at where are we spending money, time, and energy on things that aren't aligned to us. And again, coming back to what I'm going to keep saying, as we need to learn, radical selflessness is where we take responsibility for ourselves. And that means our pleasure, our joy, knowing what we want, speaking it out, doing what needs to be done to make that so. Because I truly believe that our joy meets the world's greatest need. And when I say joy, it's not like a happy thing, but it's when we're truly aligned to who we know ourselves to be. And we're doing everything to align and live that life, and stripping away everything that isn't our truth. Instead of what we've been told, that a good woman, a good girl is nice, pleasing, that we sacrifice, we have this martyrdom story that will come after everything else. No, we have to go, who are we? What is that vision? And make that the highest priority. And that is leadership. And then management is going, what are the systems and the processes that I need to put in place in service of that vision, in service of my life? And one of the key ones is your money management system. Do you have a process to manage money, short, medium, and long term, to direct it in service of you? Or is it something that overwhelms you? Or is it something you disconnect from it? Do you have processes to manage your time as a key resource, your energy, your mental state? These are the frameworks that we need to have in place. And this is the management to enable your life to be expressed, to enable that vision to come about. And this is where we start understanding, we start getting into right relationship with the masculine and the feminine, the eros, the logos, where the feminine in terms of energy is that creative life force that needs to be expressed and lived, but it needs to have in place these frameworks, these systems of great money management. You've got to be good with your money stuff. Otherwise it will just flit away. These are the structures, your time, your focus, your energy that can then enable you to live your great life. So what is it? What the belief do you want? And do you have systems and processes and frameworks in place in service of that? So it's an and, not an either or. The second really important pillar on your financial resilience is creating assets. Understanding that assets are the things that give you freedom. So what is an asset? An asset is an investment. So it's a thing that can grow in value or earn you income. And there are 4 primary asset classes or groups. So the first one is called intangible assets. And the biggest part of that is stocks and shares. This is it, owning slices of amazing businesses all over the world through a share portfolio. And the easiest way to do that is through index tracking. I think the Wealth Migrate team have got a link that you can go to another masterclass on how to be a savvy investor in that asset class. But it's been found women are extraordinary investors once they get over a story that this is dangerous, scary, they might lose it, because they don't have testosterone that takes them off all different sides. It's just been proven. So stocks and shares, intangible assets, cryptos also fall under that. The second asset class are tangible. These are physical things you can touch. That is property. I love Wealth Migrate, what they're doing. I always shout about Wealth Migrate to all my clients from the rooftops, because this is how you get physical, tangible assets and be able to put a diversified portfolio, own many of them, through simple technology. So essentially, stocks and shares was the first asset class which was democratized. Through the internet, you can now, through your phone, whether you're on a yacht, the top of a mountain, in lockdown, you can be buying companies through very simple, low-cost structures anywhere in the world. You can be sitting in, let's say, in Saudi Arabia and own the top 500 companies in the US. You could be sitting in Zambia and own the top 100 companies in Australia, all just from a simple device. Now, in the tangible asset class, that's what Wealth Migrate are doing to property, making it the same syndicated, digitally accessible investments from around the world. And we need to have these different asset classes work for us. You can also do property through direct investing, through investment property. It's really important to understand our home is not an asset. And so many women go, oh, you know, my home, this is important. This is my sense of safety. This is my net. We're told that this is really important. And many women, don't own their own home anyway. But secondly, this can be so dangerous because they never build assets. The home you live in is not an asset because it can't work for you. The third asset class are low input businesses. This is where we use extraordinary technology of the internet to create low input. And what I mean by low input is where we guide it. We are the CEOs of our lives, of our businesses, but we aren't involved in the value exchange. So technology, other people's time, systems and processes do the value exchange. So this can be from e-commerce. I mean, this is one of the biggest growing industries. And with lockdown, it's just accelerated that around the world, where you just see e-commerce exploding. Look at the Amazons, the Shopifys of the world, and you can run an e-commerce business from anywhere. Again, you can be in Johannesburg and run an e-commerce Amazon wholesaler business in the UK. There's no longer geographic limitations to do this. Digital knowledge-based businesses, my business, The Wealth Chef, is all pre-recorded trainings which are delivered in multiple different ways, royalties, books, but there's also physical low-input businesses, vending machines, ATMs, car washes, low-input car washes, laundromats. This is where systems do the work for you. And so now you're starting to see, an asset is where I don't have to be involved in the value exchange, but I get the benefit from either owning shares in other people's companies, so I benefit from the growth and I get the income. A property, it grows in value and I get the yield, the income from the rental. Businesses, I get the profit from the business running. And we realize, oh, so we need this farm, this portfolio of these different assets and different asset classes, because that's what gives us freedom. You know, I went from deep in debt to being financially free in 8 years, when I just realized that there's one thing to earn money, there's another thing to spend it, but there was a big gap in between that I'd never been told what to do with it, how to keep some of that money, how to manage it, and most importantly, how to convert it and create these assets. And when I shifted my focus from how do I save and spend less, or how do I earn more, and hoping somehow magically, you know, something different will happen in the middle, to go, oh, there's this world of assets. I need to learn about them, and I need to get assets working for me. And this became my focus. How do I grow my net worth? How do I get these growing? And then in 8 years, I was at the point where, and this is my goal for every single one of you here, is I was financially free, which meant I had this freedom of choice, this choice of what do I do with my time, my energy, my life force, because I could choose to work actively or not, because all of the money that I needed to pay for my lifestyle was being earned by this diversified portfolio of assets in stocks and shares, in investment property, and in businesses. And that brings to them, I said there were 4 primary asset classes. The 4th asset class is ourselves. I've now been financially free for 15 years. So it took me 8 years to get free. And I've been financially free from ups and downs in different markets. And I share that because it's also about how do you sustain those assets? How do you look after them? And I've now worked with over 62,000 clients and students. I've taught them the same from 42 different countries. And one thing I know with absolute certainty is that our wealth can only grow in direct proportion to our ability to bring it in, manage it, and grow it. So we have to keep growing ourselves, our knowledge, our skills, learning how to do these things, our ability to manage it. As your wealth pie gets bigger, what are the things you need to do to manage it and be a great leader to your money? Your own mindset. This is the greatest wealth creation tool we have. Our ability to get really clear on our own truth and speak it. Like, what is wealthy to me? What is my definition of it? And every single one of us have got our own freaky, juicy recipes. And then the confidence to stand in that. And this is the growing ourselves. So your wealth can only grow in direct proportion to how much you choose to grow you. And this is super important to also understand. Part of this whole aspect of the self is that, you know, our net worth is not our self-worth. There is nothing any of us can do, have, be, create, own in order to be worthy. We already intrinsically are. But here's the paradox. The more we grow ourselves, the more we master who we are, and I'm starting to get into pillar number 6, so 5, we'll come back to it here, the more our ability to grow our wealth is. So when we can focus on our self-worth and really claim that as women, and know that we don't have to ask permission to be here. We don't have to ask permission to breathe and speak. And, you know, I was earlier this week on another webinar where a woman was speaking about diversity and inclusion. And she said, you know, diversity is when you're invited to the party. Inclusion is when you're invited to dance. Belonging is when you can choose some of the songs. And so we have to keep going. What do we need to be doing to make sure that we don't only just get invited to the party, but we create some of those parties? We dance on that dance floor because we belong there. And we choose the damn songs that we dance to. And so this takes courage. You know, your financial resilience, your financial freedom takes courage. So keep expanding you. Oh, I'm getting a bit emotional here because this is such an important work that we're doing. Pillar number 3 is really understanding debt, and understanding that there are 3 different kinds of debt, but consumer debt is a debt that we have to break free from. And the prison of consumer debt, again, being told that, you know, we need to dress in a certain way, drive a certain car, do these things. And it's become so normalized in our society. Get that overdraft, get that credit card. It's almost as though you're being rewarded when you get this phone call. You've been selected for the new, you know, you can get this loan. Aren't you lucky? It's like some reward, but it's this most devastating prison. So consumer debt is when any money has been spent to have something which has no intrinsic value going forward, but you still got to use your future money, your future life force to pay for it. Plus, it's going to keep costing you more. But now a lot of people get confused. So that is consumer debt. Got to get it out of our lives. We've got to be radical. We've got to pull off that band-aid and go, no more. You know, when I climbed deep out of that debt hole, I had to make my life, my vision, my freedom more important than the perceived short-term pain of making some choices that I knew for a year, 18 months, I would live frugally. I actually went and lived in a back room with my sister. I made some radical choices because I said my freedom was more important than anything that debt was worth. And so when we claim back our worthiness in this way, but then we've got to separate out neutral debt. So neutral debt is like where you own your home, and you have a mortgage or a bond, in some place called a bond, against it, where you have a borrowing against that. It's neutral because in theory, unless the property market goes down, you could sell that property and cancel out that loan against it. But remember, it's not an asset, so that's why I just call it neutral. But for many people, they go and overextend and they go, you know, what's the biggest house I can buy for the money I have? That's the wrong decision to be making, because then there is no money left for assets and creating real wealth if you stretch your minimum repayments out. Which brings me to the third kind of debt, and this is expansion, wealth generating debt, where as we start getting savvy, we go, oh, there's a reason why every retailer, every banker wants people in debt. Debt has power. There's this thing called leverage. We can become savvy and smart because once we start understanding how to identify an asset, how to know what's the return on investment, how does it work, we go, oh, we can borrow money. And if we understand the cost of borrowing, which is the interest rate we pay, if we can use that money to control an asset that earns us more than the cost of borrowing, this is how we accelerate our way to freedom. This is how we can get to freedom faster, because now we've got assets. Now we're being savvy. Now we're being smart, and we're living life on our terms, not on what magazines and the rest of the world tell us we should be living. So really getting clear on debt and eliminating consumer debt, keeping neutral debt as small as possible, and using expansion debt to create wealth. Which brings me to pillar number 4. And this is the pillar of protection and safety. And it's really important to understand that one of the primary roles of your financial well-being is safety and security. If we are walking on a knife edge of vulnerability, if we are literally living, you know, week or month by month financially, if something goes wrong, we fall off an economic cliff. When we're in that anxious state and our nervous system is just firing off and our limbic system is hypervigilant, we cannot make discerning decisions. We cannot make the best decisions for ourselves, for our lives. And so this is super important that we understand one of the roles of money is also to keep us safe. It's that first layer of Maslow's hierarchy: safety of shelter over our head, access to food, access to physical safety, and access to opportunity. And so part of this pillar is saying, what are my safety requirements that I need in my life to be able to make great decisions? The first is you must have an emergency fund in place. Now, I recommend this is about $1,000, £800, maybe about 10,000 Rand, depending, about 800 euros or 1,000 euros, which is literally set aside for the to be expected unexpected events. Because one of the reasons that 80% of people go back into debt when they're just climbing out of debt is something comes along. The car breaks down, there's a medical emergency, this to be expected unexpected events. And if you've got no provision for this, well, then what do? You go and get that credit card, you go into overdraft, and this devastating cycle comes. And then it can feel like, what's the point? I'm never making progress. And this can be this wearing away aspect where we just feel like, I'm never going to get this in place. So when we can be conscious and go, oh, if we provide for that, that is really key. Then the next part of security is having a cash safety net. Now, this safety net should be between 3 and 9 months of your basic living needs. This is not your current monthly lifestyle expenditure. This is what is the minimum amount of money that you need to keep that roof over your head, food enough to be nourished. This is not gourmet, and no, I'm sorry, but Lindt chocolate is not part of the emergency fund, even though I do believe it is. You know, I need to smash down that bar of chocolate every now and then. What is you need for basic access to opportunity? Would that be an internet? Would that be transport? What is that you need? And then you multiply that between 3 to 9 months, depending on what feels right for you. If you've got other earners or other sources of income in your household, then you need a smaller net. If it's just you, you might need a bigger net. So you start saving this. And this again sits in a cash equivalent, like a money market. So it's accessible that if something were to happen to you, which so many people have seen in life in the time of COVID, shit happens. And we have to pivot and adjust. So now when you've got that in place, this cash element. We also need to look at things like insurances. And this is an area where so many people get badly wrong. They are sold insurances based on fear and greed. And many people have insurances they absolutely don't need, which is leaking money out of their life, but they don't have the insurance they do need. A basic insurance is life insurance, but you only need life insurance if you've got dependents. And now, for any of parents here who've got codependency issues with adult children that you still feel you need to do economic outpatient care, stop it. Adult children, let them go and be free. So if you do not have true financial dependence, you do not need life insurance. Life insurance is not a death bingo. That's like, woohoo, you get a bonus payout. It's there to cover a gap in case you aren't there for people who are truly financially dependent on you. Then there's insurances like home insurance, car insurance, which are to ensure your basic safety, that if there was a catastrophic event. There are so many other insurances that we absolutely don't need. And one of the ones that I just want to speak about, funeral policies. They are one of the most lucrative things for the financial industry, selling funeral policies to people, when in fact people just put together an emergency fund, a cash safety net, and started investing and built up their own funeral policy through assets. They would have assets that work for them. And so we need to just start becoming savvy and understanding what are these things. And then the final component of this 3-part element to protection is understanding wills and powers of attorney, also called health directives or financial directives. And it is absolutely imperative that every single person has a will. Many people think you only have a will when you've got assets to give. No, no, no. If you don't have a will, you die what's called intestate. And intestacy, so basically the state, the government determines what to do with you, any minor kids you have. And this is so dangerous for you. And if you truly care about anybody in your life, you'll get a will in place. It does not cost a lot of money. A simple 2-page or 1-page will. My will is literally 1 page. You get this in place and it means you don't die intestate. So your protection, understanding that this is part of being able to sleep well at night for you, and knowing that you, those you love, your assets, your ability and access to life and opportunity is protected. Which brings me to the 5th pillar, which is mastery, which is really mastering this greatest asset, ourselves. And so here's the bad news. Some more bad news. You could go, and you're just a bundle of joy. You keep throwing it at us. Here is the devastating truth that each of us women have to drop into. And we've got to grieve this and sob it and get snotty over it and just get over this. Because we are fed this story through nursery rhymes, through all the fairy tales, through the chick flicks and the rom-coms, that somebody is coming, that there's this knight in shining armor who's going to come and rescue us, kiss us on our beautifully puffed up lips, and then we'll never have to worry about this stuff again. Isn't that so nice? And I understand the intoxication of that dream. We can have it whether it's in our business, whether it's in different parts of our lives. Oh, I wish I didn't have to deal with this shit. I don't want to do the tax. I don't want to do the money management side. I wish somebody would just come and handle the stuff and I can just go and do that. But we've fed this innocuous, devastating story that in fact that's the way it should be, that if there isn't somebody who's handling that, so somehow we were a bit broken, we haven't been chosen. And so when we really get that, here's the bad news, it's a lie. Nobody is coming. Nobody. I'm going to say that again. Nobody is coming. Because here's the good news, that somebody is already here. That somebody is you. And when we realize that as long as we're trying to seek to be rescued in this area of our financial well-being and our safety and our security and our money stuff, that we believe that somebody else needs to come and do this, and we outsource our financial well-being to a financial advisor or to a partner or to a parent, and we believe that we can't do this because it's scary or dangerous. Yes, it is scary. It is right at the edge of life, but it's what we need to do, and we are already here. You are the one you've always been looking for. And that is the great news. We are each that one. And when we really get that, oh my God, now you can start the most extraordinary, exhilarating, juicy love affair with you and your life. And get curious and get excited and choose to be awake to who you are, to your heart, to your dreams, because they matter. And you then become in service of living that full life. And that is when you get to pitch up. That is when you get to contribute to the amazing world. And you choose to master your money stuff. You choose to invest. You choose to get into right relation with these so they can be in service of you in your life, because you've pitched up and you choose to do that for you, not as a means of itself, but because you have finally realized you were the one you were always waiting for. And when you keep remembering that and you surround yourselves with a ecosystem of community, of who do you go to with your dreams, your goals? Who do you have in your life that you can have clean money conversations with? Who are the people who have earned the right to hear your dreams? Have you earned the right for some other people's dreams? Noticing, where are you in the arena? Noticing who do you give? Whose noise do you listen to versus who maybe you shouldn't be listening to at all. And really, this is the mastery, your ecosystem of who are your mentors, your teachers, your community, your peer group, that you put in place in service of you to protect this, your confidence, your dreams, so that you can step in and live your greatest, juiciest, wealthiest life. So this is my wish and my hope for each and every one of us, that we really get into right relationship with money. We realize it's assets that we need, not money. We realize this isn't as complicated as we've been told. And we have the courage to just take one step at a time, closer and closer towards ourselves. And we know that the greatest gift that we can give to the world is to break the cycles of intergenerational martyrdom that has been passed down from women, that we have to come last, that to be a great woman is to look after everybody first, and we'll take the scraps of life. That, when we look out in the world, has caused some fucked up stuff. It's time for us to change this and realize we need to step up, because nobody's coming, because we are already here. So thank you for this. And I know we've still got some time now, a few minutes left for questions. So let's get your questions in. Let's talk about anything. I dare you to be open. Do you want to talk about investing? Do you want to talk about debt? Do you want to talk about money and relationships? Let's dive in. I'm here. So let's use this time to be juicy and open.
And thank you so much for sharing with us. It really is always such a pleasure to listen to you. I am one for people who don't know, and I speak openly about this, I'm one of Anne's graduates from her Financial Freedom University. And the scariest thing for me was arriving on the first day and Anne challenged us to dream big. Because as women, we don't dream big, especially where finances come, because we always think if we dream big and we go after it, we're going to let the entire universe down. But let me tell you, I came home from that, scared the crap out of my husband when I got back home, because I landed at the front door with a thud and said, I've got this, babe. So to all of you women out there, I am going to post a link in the chat box. If you want to find out more about Anne, the journey of Financial Freedom University, and how she can actually get you to that point, please just reach out to her. But let's go and hand over to Megs and to Pamela and have some questions and comments that have come in from our community.
Sure. So I think the biggest question that our community is wanting to ask, but it's too shy to ask. How did you start? You said you were financially free in 8 years. Where did you start? What journey did you go through to get there?
You know, the first place that I started was, I was working in Hong Kong. I was working as an engineer, trying to do all the right stuff, earning hard, saving. I climbed out of a debt hole, but it was all about scarcity. It was all about what I couldn't have. And it all blew up in a messy money drama, because the reality is, if we suppress life, our truth, it will leak out. Our life forces are amazing. And it blew up in this big messy money drama, and my marriage and the money walked out the door together. And I sat there in this really low point that I look back now extraordinarily grateful for, because if it had just eked along, if I didn't have this big cataclysmic event, maybe it would never have made me stop and go, there's something broken here. I'm supposedly doing the right thing. I'm supposedly not spending too much. I'm working really hard, but there's a broken cycle. And so the really first step was, I needed to believe that there was a way where I could live an amazing life. I could do the things I wanted to do, and I didn't have to sacrifice financial security for that. You know, I didn't have to swing to go, oh, well, whatever, I'll just, you know, spend money and somehow future go, because that didn't feel congruent to me. It was an and I had to stop and go, there is an and be curious first to go, how could that be? Let me find the way, and then be prepared to take that step. And that was going, hang on, there's this whole world of asset generated wealth, which our education system doesn't teach us about. I certainly hadn't been exposed to that from parents, from friends, from the society that I'd grown up in. It was work hard, spend some, hopefully there'll be some at the end of the life, and you'll run out before the money does, you know. And so it was then this daring to go and be curious and learn. And I started in the stock market. I started going, okay, and it felt scary, but it's what is so important to understand, that it's a step-by-step process. We just have to keep taking the next step. So often we can want to overplan the entire journey. You know, we want to see every step that's going to happen and every eventuality that's come away before we even dare to take the first step. And that is devastating. This is this fear-based side. We also have to trust. We have to step into life, and then it will respond to us. We have to take that next step. And we can't know the full journey. We can have the map laid out and have a sense of, so I brought stock market in, then I got interested in investment property. I started understanding leverage, how to borrow money to control assets, made that faster. Then I got into low input businesses, and this kept growing, and I kept growing myself. But it had to be done one step at a time, because there were some things that I was only ready for once I'd taken the next step. And this is so key, is we've got to get on that dance floor. We've got to get in that arena. It's going to feel uncomfortable. We've just got to take that one step at a time, because that's all. Any journey to freedom is always just one step at a time, Megs.
Thanks, Lee. What books or courses or people did you approach to learn what you learned about your assets?
So one of the very first books I got on this journey and read was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's this iconic personal finance book, which really was the first time I started understanding, an asset is not what the banks or financial advisor tell me. It's not my shoe collection. It's not my furniture. It's not my bloody car. It's these things that can grow in value and earn income. And that was like this huge eureka that, I need to be focusing on that. And little did I know, almost 20 years later, I would be sharing stages with Robert around the world. You know, sometimes you never know when you are courageous and take a step where it might lead you. And, this is this constant reading, and then understanding the difference between investing and trading. So investing in the stock market, understanding Warren Buffett and many others. But if anyone's interested, go over to the Wealth Chef. I've got a plethora of blog articles, videos, look at the YouTube channel. Just start, I just started being curious to let's start understanding this world and getting that in place. And there's so many different books I can recommend, but again, a lot of it was mindset stuff together with the practical how-to. And one of the things I did find difficult and frustrating, that often I would pick up an investment book and it was great to put me to sleep, but that was it. It was boring as hell, or it made me just feel stupid. Or I would get these great motivational books, which would get me all turned on and revved up in life, but it really left me hanging with no, well, how to, what do we do now? And, one of the things I'm very proud about with the Wealth Chef book. So again, that's a great place to start. Go and get the book, The Wealth Chef, from any, online store, digital store, wherever you are in the world, is bringing together both the mindset and well, what are the practical steps to opening your online broker and getting invested in your index trackers? How do you evaluate these things? What's the most efficient and effective debt destruction strategy to get debt out of your life, to bring these two elements into place?
Thanks, Anne.
I see a question that says, can you speak more about borrowing to invest? Do you want me to jump in and answer that one?
Go ahead.
So it's really important to understand that you need to differentiate between this consumer debt. Do not even think about starting to borrow to create assets if you haven't got a grip on any kind of consumer debt. It's really important to understand that if you're more money that is flowing out than is coming in, if you're going into a debt hole and you have what are called the borrow more money flow pattern, you earn some money, then you go and borrow some money and you make your spend decisions based on minimum repayments. These are habits. They are faulty money flows, and we have to readdress the flow of money through our life. Because as long as we believe if I just earn more, if I can start investing, I can start earning, then my problems will be solved. It doesn't matter. No more amount of money coming in will ever solve a faulty money flow. So we've got to really get clear of what is going on behaviorally in our life and identify these faulty patterns that we can then change them to make a difference. This is why it's super important. We go, okay, I need to face, there's a habit, there's a money habit that I've got a problem with here, because your wealth is actually created by a new set of wealthy habits, new set of behaviors that you do. The next key thing before you even consider borrowing is that you must have a habit of regularly paying yourself first. Paying yourself first means the most important bill you pay with every bit of money that comes in is towards your freedom. And specifically what I mean is you invest some of that money. This is a discipline that has been shown through research over and over. Those who become financially successful, those who become financially free, have a discipline of going, I will pay my freedom, my dreams first. I'm going to take a chunk of money and I'm going to put it into assets. I'm going to put it into this to start getting investments. And this is a terrifying thing for you to do, because so often we've got this habit, go, oh, I'll save what there is left over. I'll see what there is at the end of the month. If that, I'll start investing. Oh, but I must pay everybody else first. And we've been told that we need to do that, because what if there's nothing left to pay the electricity or the food bill or the school fees? And here's the thing, this comes back to, if we're not paying ourselves first in our money world, we're certainly not doing it in the other areas of our lives. We're not doing it with our time and our energy. We're putting ourselves last. And this is the devastation of this not paying ourselves first. And so if you're not creating a habit that every month, every week, whatever the cycle of your money flow is, a slice of money is put out. Now it could be 100 Rand, it could be $3. It doesn't matter, because of the habit. It's this message to yourself that I am worth investing in. My dreams, my freedom, and there is enough. We're also training our brain that there is enough. Instead of going, oh, I don't think there'll be enough. If there's anything left, I'll give myself that. Because now you go, okay, yeah, I'm going to stand by that. That is important. I'm putting money into that. And I will find a way by being creative to pay for all these other things. Because now we get our brain kicking in. Instead of going, oh, well, I'll see if there's anything left over, or there's nothing left over, so maybe next month, let's see. And then next month becomes next year, becomes a lifetime. We go, how do I afford that? How do I bring that in place? And this is where creativity and this extraordinary thing comes into play, and we make great decisions. Now, only once you've got that working, now you go, okay, now I've got a healthy money flow. I've created wealthy money habits. I'm paying myself first. Now I look at accelerating. You can't drive a Ferrari when you haven't yet learned how to, pedal the bicycle. And so now we go and look at leverage, and this is where you can go borrowing. So the easiest asset class to use leverage or borrowing is investment property. Banks love to lend against property because it's called a secured asset. And so it can be a simple buy-to-let unit, a one-bedroom studio. You can do it collaboratively with other guests, but basically money is actually never the problem. It's just understanding you need to be able to evaluate and work out, does this deal work? You need to know what's the capital value of that and what's the cash flow or the yield that will come from that deal, to make sure that that investment, it has got a rate of return, also an internal rate of return higher than the cost of borrowing. Now, on the Wealth Migrate platform, if you've been on other webinars teaching you how to read that fact sheet of a property deal, that fact sheet of an investment fund you're going into, say, what is the return on investment? And as long as that return is higher than the cost of borrowing, then you can borrow for the rest of your life and you're going to be growing your wealth. So really understanding that relationship of getting rid of consumer debt, changing money flow patterns, putting your freedom first. When that habit is in place, then you look at accelerating and using something like leverage to do that. Back to you, Megs.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. We've got a question from Nima. How do you figure out which stocks to buy?
Okay, so this is really sexy. I think there's another link that you have to inviting people to come on a Roadmap to Freedom webinar where we can go deeper into which is the first asset class. I started with stocks and shares because it is the most tax efficient investment you can do, because the government incentivizes people to invest in stocks and shares, in retirement annuities, in pensions, in 401ks and superannuations. And there are these tax-free investment schemes where you can invest. Now, I am so grateful that when I started my journey, I came across these things called index tracker funds, where it's a bundled investment. With a single investment, you can own a whole bundle of the top companies around the world following different markets. That's what an index is. So I can buy the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US, from my online broker in South Africa or in London or in the UK or in Europe, anywhere around the world. So index trackers are my absolute love. They really are. And now you're not going to get them through a financial advisor because they don't have costs. So that is a whole lesson, but let's get index trackers in your head. You can research them, go up to the Wealth Shift blog. I've got a lot of stuff in there. In the Wealth Shift book, there's a whole chapter on how to invest in them, how to select them. They really are juicy, juicy investments. And you can start from small amounts of money, 300 Rand, 25 pounds a month, typically about $40, even less, in regular investing schemes. So it's about creating this habit, because a lot of people think you need a whole lot of money to invest in the stock market. It's not at all. You can create it in these small amounts and you build up and you build confidence.
So leading on from that, and we've got a question from Margaret that says, so how do taxes affect your investment decisions? Now, we all know we all have to pay tax. It doesn't matter where we sit in the world. We all have to pay tax, but there must be some juicy secrets that you can share with regards to investment.
Absolutely. And I was actually doing taxes this week. It was provisional tax. It was VAT. It was all sorts of side. And I was laughing, none of us like to pay taxes. But I had to really, take my own medicine, my own advice, as I was sending off big, big payments. Going, tax is a quality problem. So first off, we've got to really, really, really get clear. Tax is a quality problem to have. You only pay tax when you have money flowing into your life, in your business and in your personal life. So we first celebrate paying tax, because the greatest way to avoid tax is don't make money. But then you literally are spiting yourself. So if you don't want to pay any tax, great, just don't make money, don't create any wealth. That's not what we're here for. So one thing I have to keep reminding myself and all of the Wealth Shift clients is we must never let the tax tail wag the wealth dog. Because I see so many business owners, people avoiding going into investments and deals because they want to avoid tax. Instead of going, how do I create wealth and how do I minimize my tax? Big, big difference. And people constrict their businesses because they only want to pay out. The accountants told them they can have a measly dividend payout. And I don't want to earn any more than that because then I'll be taxed more. Well, fine. But then, you need the money flow. So I think really getting clear on that. Then we go, okay, let's be savvy. Again, coming with stock market investment, we want to be using the tax incentivized allowances our governments have given us. That's your retirement funding and your tax-free investments account. In the UK, that's the like of an ISA. In the US, it's a Roth. In South Africa, it's a tax-free investment account, which allows us to invest in an environment that anything you invest with inside that specific account is free of capital gains and income tax. And it makes a huge difference, compounded over time. Then you also can look at different kind of structures. businesses are great. So having a business, this third asset class, is also fantastic because it's a great way of, you can run expenses through those businesses. So when you also pay a lot of your lifestyle expenses with pre-tax money inside a business, really, you're effectively getting, up to 40, 45%, 50% more for your money before it's paid out. So having these different structures. But I think the really key thing is first choose wealth, then look at tax efficiency, rather than how do I avoid paying tax. And I see so many people stifling their wealth because they ask themselves the wrong question. So such a great question there, Lee.
Thanks,
I
Anne.
have one.
Okay.
Go. I've taken over today. So my turn.
Yes.
So I'm a mom to 2 young girls. And basically, I want to know, how do I break the cycle for myself so that my kids can live, a financially free life? Obviously starting with me, but how do I teach or reinforce whatever it is that I learned then? Because at 9 and 11, they need.
I so love this question, and really, this is so key. And speaking around the world, I did a TV show in the UK. I speak on stages around the world. So often parents and women will come to me and they'll say, and one of my biggest motivators for wanting to learn this is I don't want my kids to struggle financially. And I go, it's absolutely fantastic. And the greatest gift you can give your kids is financial freedom. Yours, not theirs. Because we can only break a cycle when we break the cycle of believing that their financial well-being is more important than yours. So we have to come back and go, the greatest gift I can give my kids is never to be a financial burden on them. The greatest gift I can give my kids is not to be the 2 out of 3 women who will have to rely on their kids or their family or the charity of strangers just to survive. I am going to do that because here's the thing. When we do that, we break the cycle, because kids learn by what we do, not what we say. And now they start modeling. And as you take on your own financial empowerment and learn, you start sharing this. So the next key thing is, once you've made that decision, go, my gift to my kids is my financial liberation. And through doing that, I will now have the skills and the knowledge to be able to show them how to do it for themselves. It's not your job to give it to the kids. And because a lot of people, when they say, I don't want my kids to suffer financially, we've got the story that somehow money and finances and not having it is suffering. And so we've also got this funky relationship with money. And we've got to realize that money is just money. Our certainty, security, our ability to be fully expressed in life actually money is one tiny element in. There's so many other elements we've got to step up. And the role of money is not to keep us from suffering. The role of money is not to protect us and shield us from life. For me, I really believe the reason we choose to do this is so we can be fully present with life. I was at a presentation, someone said to me, Anne, the purpose of life is happiness. And when you've got money, then you can be happy. And I said, bullshit. The purpose of life is not to be happy. The purpose of life is life. And when you're financially empowered, you've got resources, you're able to be fully present with all of life. It's fears, it's joys, it's suffering, it's grief, it's snottiness, it's boringness, all of it. And we don't have to numb out. And when someone shared with me recently, they said, Anne, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I did this, because my mum has been, got dementia and has really been struggling, and she's been deteriorating. And because I had my money stuff sorted, I could go and be present and participate in this key stage. And I could be there at the end of my mum's life. She was one of the hardest things, but it was one of the most exquisite things. And I'm so grateful I didn't have to dash off to work every day, and I wasn't stressed and about money stuff, that I could be present. And so when we really get that the gift to the kids is your financial well-being, and then teaching them how to create it themselves so that they can be fully expressed, so they can come up. Because actually, when we do this, it's exciting, it's wonderful. Why would you ever deprive your kids of that? But you've got to teach them the skills. And you do that by first learning it yourself. So I love that question, Pamela. Oh, yes. Preach, amen. Thank you, Jane. Yes, I did get a bit on my pedestal there, didn't I? Hell yeah.
throughout this whole webinar, I feel like you were speaking to me. Like I felt like you were like an image of me telling me that, hey, wake up. This is the time. This is, you know, you need to learn and stop and break the cycle. And then I think another question that I have is, why the Wealth Chef? Of all the things you could have come up with. And on your website, everything is food-based. Like when I just think food. And it ties in so well into your brand and who you are.
You know, so why the Wealth Chef? Because I think, you know, and this is not about being patronized about women in the kitchen, or maybe there's a fun sort of element about that. Go, okay, instead of like being the model of the woman dicing away in the kitchen, to actually go, you know, oh, there we go. Sorry, I didn't know what was happening. My screen suddenly changed. It was saying, instead of money being the scary thing up at the top of the pyramid, like what do we do in investments and assets and stock market? What if it was just like an onion? What if it was just one of the inputs into our life? And when we really get that, money is just one of these components together with oxygen and water and life force that we get to blend and we get to create through this ingredients. We can either create, you know, money hell or wealth heaven by learning what we do. And it is also a simple step of recipes. There are consistent habits that we can learn to do. And we rarely get being wealthy and being great with money as a learned skill. Not a single one of us popped out the womb an investment genius. And that's so liberating. Just like we can go, I want to, you know, cook something. Let me go and Google a recipe and get the ingredients. Well, that's exactly what investing is. That's exactly what, you know, learning great money management skills. It's just a series of steps that we can follow. And when we realize it is as straightforward as that, we can, you know, let go of the fear and anxiety. And so hence the Wealth Chef, which was just, how do we master money as just an extraordinary ingredient in our life? Because it's nothing more than that, a simple old onion that we get to dice up and put in our stews.
Awesome. So I think we're over the time now. So I think the one question, you keep talking about fear and anxiety. How did you overcome fear? Not just fear in general, but also fear of losing money in stocks.
Yeah. So, you know, one thing that I've really learned on the journey is I don't try and overcome fear. You know, every time I step on a stage, I almost want to vomit. But I choose to step into that because I think one thing I really learned, that there is no time when any of us are ready to step out of our comfort zone. Every time we step into something new, there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be fear. But I've learned to differentiate, but what is the anxiety of the nervous system and the ego going, don't go there, it's scary. I really appreciate that. My ego, my nervous system, its job is to try and keep the status quo because that's what it knows as safe. Even if that means staying in a debt hole and your longer term well-being isn't there. Its job is not to make you happy. Its job is not to make you wealthy. Its job is not to make you even whole and healthy. It's just to be consistent with what you know. So anything that's outside of there is going to have an element of like, uncomfortableness. But I've learned to differentiate what is the noise in my head that is just the stories that I'm making up. Where am I making up a story of, if I do this and I go into the stock market, then I'm going to lose all my money. And then I'm going to just prove that I'm stupid and the money's scary and I shouldn't have gone there because that's not for people like me. And then I'll just prove that I can't do that. And then that's going to mean that I'll never be able to have wealth. And we go down this rabbit hole. I mean, we've got an extraordinary entire film department in our brain. We make up these horror movies within a nanosecond, and we've got to go, oh, hang on, my brain's just gone off and created a horror movie. Slow the hell down. That's not real fear. That's not the discomfort of the unknown. That's just you having a whole big, making a movie up in the head. Is what's true. And I'll always come back to what's that smaller step and what is true. Nobody loses all their money in the stock market unless you're a fucking gambler and you get taking your stock picks from the person on the corner. When you learn and you understand how assets and investments working, it really is formulaic. And this is when we can go, how do we overcome that anxiety, that fear? We do it through knowledge. But we also don't have to know everything. We just need to know that next step. And this is that fine line, because we can also get caught into that analysis paralysis, that believing more knowledge, more information will make us feel safe, that we'll get to a point where we don't, feel nervous. Anything new is going to come with anxiety. But unfortunately, as kids, we learned to process that. We shook that out. I've learned also how to do body work. I dance, I shake out. It's literally a physical thing. How do I ground myself? So we could have a whole session on just how this is part of mastery, learning how to master ourselves so we can differentiate between what's true, what's the voices we should be listening to, and how do we create this relationship with ourselves so we can really start trusting ourselves with ourselves, knowing that nobody's coming. So we might as well step up. So that's it. What a grace that nobody's coming because we're already here.
That is absolutely awesome. Thank you very much, Anne, for sharing, for being the powerhouse woman that you are, and teaching us to be the powerhouse woman that we are and just need to open up and accept. So thank you very much for your message. I know that it has been so enlightening. You see the comments that are coming in from our community, and they absolutely love you. And so thank you to Megs and Pamela, as always, being my wing ladies. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And to all our attendees for spending the last hour with us. We really do appreciate your time, your energy, and your interaction on this webinar. Next week, same time, same place, same link you used to join on tonight. We have Ilse Alberts, who is going to speak to us about creating generational wealth and really opening yourself up to the possibilities of passing on the torch, which is going to be interesting. I have never been in a chat with Ilse. I don't know where it's going to go. It's going to be exciting and new charted territory. To find out more about Anne, the fabulous work that she's doing, not only in her own life and with everyone else in her community, but the charities that she supports, which really empower women and girls and females in the workplace, please go to thewellchef.com. You can find all her social links and everything there. So thank you everybody for joining us. Have a phenomenal evening. Be safe and be blessed. And we'll see you online next weekend.
Thank you. Awesome work, Migrate, and you guys, love you loads. And just let it be easy, one step at a time.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.